Good late Saturday, everybody. Meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center with the latest on Hurricane Henri here. We're watching the scenario very carefully as it does evolve. Henri trying to organize maybe a little bit more tonight. We'll see, but it doesn't look all that impressive on infrared satellite. But one thing I've noted, it seems like maybe a little more off toward the east is where some of the worst of the action is, so that could have some implications here downstream as we're looking ahead in toward that timeline. It's something for those folks to watch in the northeast here. We're going to be watching to see how things kind of come together for some of these areas toward those regions there around Long Island, toward Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts there as well. So I just have to kind of watch what happens here with the Hurricane Henri as we do go ahead and look at some of that recon data. You can kind of see maybe that lower pressure here a little bit further off toward the east of where the track is, and then also see that area of yellow there with the recon data indicative of maybe some hurricane force winds there as well. So again, maybe seeing a little bit of a shift as our models are indicating this here as I put them on the screen. So the track might shift just a little bit to the east here, but I just got to really watch in the northeast. This is looking like it might be a high-end tropical storm, low-end hurricane type scenario, but this is an area that doesn't deal with these type of storms very often, so a little more of an impact maybe than a typical scenario like this down toward the Gulf Coast. I mean, we had a storm pretty similar to this with our tropical storm Fred there back on Monday toward Franklin County, but that area had just dealt with Hurricane Michael just a few years ago, and we also have just seen overall the population there not be too big compared to what's going to be up here in an area that hadn't dealt with a storm like this in a while, so there's really more damage to be caused, unfortunately, for people who are not as familiar with a scenario like this. But again, watching this very carefully, we'll go ahead and say where the hurricane warning is right now. I have that pulled up. I isolated it so we could kind of see this a little bit better to see where the worst of the impact could be from a hurricane. As you can see, toward Long Island there, Riverhead, for instance, under this is toward Suffolk County there, New Haven County, Middlesex County, New London County, over toward Washington County, and Newport County. So parts of, boy, it looks like a few different states involved here in hurricane warnings at this point. So talking about parts of New York, Rhode Island there, and also Connecticut. So again, going to be watching this. I have a wind impact graphic where we'll kind of isolate things to show you where it looks like some of the worst of the winds will be. Now, these are not the extent of the warnings here with this seeing that flash flood warning on the screen right now toward New York City already. We do have other warnings which we'll get into in a moment, but you see here already getting some showers and storms toward New York. So don't want to have that rain coming in like this because that's just going to cause the ground to be more saturated earlier on even. So the more rain you get earlier on, that's going to kind of make things worse as we look ahead because more rain will pile in as the storm gets closer. So that's something to watch for. Even if they don't get the worst of the wind or storm surge in New York, that heavy rain could be a big time impact for those folks there toward the metro New York City area. Flash flood watch there in play. They're going to be watching for that potential of some very heavy rain in a short period of time. So just got to be kind of watching for that carefully. And then also, we'll get right back to the storm here, but I do want to touch on something that happened in terms of a rapid water rise west of Nashville today. A tragic situation, folks. So just getting some new information here into the Weather Center. So I kind of wanted to share this with you as we go over to the radar scope computer. Again, this is not Henri we're talking about here, but west of Nashville here, folks. I mean, maybe it doesn't look like that much, but once you put the mouse over it, we're talking about 20 inches of rain just today toward areas there around. It looks like Humphreys County, Tennessee, Dixon County, Tennessee, and according to WSMV TV there, NBC4 in Nashville, the Humphreys County Sheriff's Office there, the Humphreys County Sheriff's Office is reporting 10 dead and 31 missing there. Just horrific numbers. This is a very isolated event, really. As you can see off toward the east, we're talking about only a couple inches maybe toward Nashville, but again, I'm seeing just extreme rainfall amounts at about 17 inches measured here just today on a rain gauge, an official rain gauge there, not just using the estimates here that we're looking at right now on the graphic on our system, but actual measured amounts there are about 1.5 feet just today, and a lot of this falling overnight. Getting some more rain even there in today, though, toward this area as we look over again. This is not Henri. I just wanted to see what's going on. We're not seeing the rain as much now, but we even had a tornado warning in its vicinity, and then saw the injury here a little bit earlier on this evening. As you can see, the worst of the rain now translating off toward the south, luckily. But just a tragic scenario there indeed. Definitely seeing a serious situation as things did go about there. As we're going to go ahead and keep watching things and just monitoring things with that flood threat. You see the mouse on the screen and just talking about how bad things are there and how bad things have been toward that region, especially further up toward the north here as we're looking toward Humphreys County there. In Dixon County, but the Humphreys County report is what we were getting in from the SMV TV there in Nashville a little while ago. So again, we'll pump those digital totals, storm totals up once more and see what happened. You see down to the south quite a bit of rain there too, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10 inches. But once you get in the yellows and in that red area is where we had this tragic scenario. I know river rises were occurring. There's a hydrograph showing just it actually one of the rivers just shooting on up there. It looks like, I know, a situation we weren't really expecting to have to talk about, but it did end up taking place there toward the west of Nashville, so I wanted to touch on that. But let's move away from that now and get back to our Hurricane Henri. Still watching things, and we'll go ahead and now kind of advance in the show here with some of our graphics. We do have some of these graphics here ready for you guys at home, so let's go ahead and start off with just the name list, because we had Grace there make landfall as a major hurricane toward Mexico earlier this morning. A Category 3 with max sustained winds around 125 miles an hour. I posted about that, had that infrared satellite imagery loop there for everybody as that was making landfall, that imagery. So just trying to give you guys an idea of what's been going on there, but the last advisory has been issued for that system, so that's good news at least. But they've seen quite a bit of flooding down there, fatalities with that system there as well. Again, Henri's what we're watching now. No other named storms at the moment. Hopefully it stays that way for a little while after Henri, but you never know. Some model tenants and things. Too early to get into the details there, but our 8 p.m. advisory on our Category 1 hurricane. You can see max sustained winds at 75 miles per hour. That movement north-northeast at 18 miles an hour. That minimum pressure 988 millibars. And then we have tropical storm and hurricane warnings in play. But there's just so many I didn't want to put them on the screen here because it would just take up too much room. But I'll go ahead and read them all for you now. Hurricane warning in effect here as we're looking. It looks like from about the south shore there, on the south shore of Long Island, from Fire Island Inlet to Montauk Point, the north shore of Long Island from Port Jefferson Harbor to Montauk Point, New Haven, Connecticut to west of Westport, Massachusetts there, as well as Block Island, and that's, we're talking about in the red area. There's some inland alerts. We talked about that a little bit, as you could see the counties that were filled in earlier, but tropical storm warning in play. That's the blue area on this map, the dark blue areas that are kind of highlighted there along the coast. Port Jefferson Harbor to west of New Haven, Connecticut, the south shore of Long Island from west of Fire Island Inlet to East Rockaway Inlet, Westport, Massachusetts, there to Chatham, Massachusetts, including Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket. So we're going to be watching those areas here, even coastal New York and New Jersey, west of Rockaway, East Rockaway Inlet there, and even all the way looking over toward New York City as well. So just a lot to run down. I'm in northern Florida. We normally cover our area here, so a little unfamiliar with some of these regions. So trying my best here to try to keep an eye on this national picture, because this is a big national story here. That's really going to be important as we look ahead and toward that timeline. You see, it's going to slow down. It's moving pretty fast now. Probably be starting that live coverage later tomorrow morning, early tomorrow afternoon, just depending on how things kind of deteriorate there along the coast. We'll kind of play it by ear in terms of when we're going to do special coverage of that tropical storm, strong tropical storm landfall, or low-end hurricane landfall. That the impacts won't be too different. You see 70-mile-an-hour winds forecasted right there, right before it makes landfall at 2 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. Again, slowing down here, and that could be a big story. Now we have the storm surge threat, unusual direction, which you'll see here on a graphic in a moment as we're looking later on, maybe. But as we kind of see here, we're going to be more focused on that slow movement, because by 2 a.m. Monday, still just trying to maybe inch in toward Massachusetts there, 45-mile-an-hour maximum sustained winds forecasted, and then you see it ultimately becoming maybe a non-tropical, extratropical system as we look ahead off of Maine, but still having that impact there to some extent before it kind of falls apart some more. But you see right now expecting maybe winds there from that Category 1 type system. So that means we're talking maybe max sustained wind around 75, 70, give or take. So some damage, again, maybe a little more because this is an area not as used to a stronger tropical storm, low-wind hurricane. It's really rare here, folks, and we'll break that down again in just a moment. I keep pinning at it, but I have some graphics for you guys to kind of understand the grasp of this and just the gravity of a storm in this area, even if it's not an extreme scenario, because it's not, and this is not Sandy, and I'm going to write that down for you as well here in a moment. But you see our peak wind gust forecast. Now, New York City, I'm not expecting too strong of winds overall. Got to watch out for an isolated tornado, something like that here with a tropical system, or maybe even a quick gust, a little stronger. Can't completely rule that out, but really not expecting a whole bunch of wind there toward New York City. I think it'll be more about the rain toward the New York City metro, and that could be significant. As we look off toward the east here, you see Riverhead. I'm going gust maybe upward to 75 based on looking at some of the model data. New Haven, Connecticut there, 65. But you see toward eastern parts, maybe of Long Island, right where landfall could happen, or Montauk there, I'm going with 80-mile-an-hour readings there, 80 miles per hour peak gust type potential there. Newport toward Rhode Island, 70-mile-an-hour peak gust potential, and then Nantucket getting further away, 55. But I did raise Newport and Nantucket based on some of that latest model data. Right before I came on, I upped those numbers just a little bit because it seemed like we're getting a little bit of an easterly shift there in some of the model guidance. But where I have these areas highlighted, that's where I think the power outage potential, the potential power loss, looks to be the highest. So in those surrounding areas there, we really got to watch. Got to target the devices now here as you're looking ahead. If you are watching from up there, if you have relatives up there, make sure you get the message here because we'll start to lose some power as we're looking ahead, especially as we get into war tomorrow after about sunrise or so. As you see here around 8 a.m., we're talking about some of those stronger winds coming in toward the coast. So just in a direct path, need to chart up their devices. Again, really important. If you're in that reddish area, the kind of darker reddish area even, and then the purple area where we have even higher confidence here of some tropical force winds, and even those type of winds in this area could knock out that power. So that's where we're really concerned in the two shades of red and the purple. But even further up, we've got to watch for that rain potential and isolated to scattered power outages, but more widespread power outages expected there in the red, in the purple. So be mindful of that. You kind of see how the wind potential kind of inches on up, and eventually it becomes a lower probability situation. But again, we'll keep our eyes on this. And then you see, this is what I was kind of talking about, most common August tracks. Generally, we have them kind of, the storms move away from the coast. But we were expecting that earlier on, but the pattern ended up promoting the storm turning back in. You can see here, even in the last 50 years, we've only had 5 hurricanes to track within 150 miles of Riverhead, New York. I think this will be more similar to Gloria or Belle versus Bob at this point, though we have started to see that eastern movement again. So it's possible we could end up seeing more of a weaker Bob scenario here because that was a Cat 2. Also, I want to note that Sandy was much stronger than Henri. It should be there at landfall. We're talking about pressures right now. The latest pressure from the Hurricane Center, 980. It looks like 88 millibars is what I have here. And we're talking on this with Sandy, we got down to 945 in New Jersey, which is significantly lower, but it does not count here in this because it was considered extratropical. But again, a Gloria Bell type situation. You see Gloria had 14 fatalities, Bell with 12, but all storms are different. You don't know what's going to happen with flooding. We already saw toward Tennessee and unconnected scenario there. So much rain, so many tragic stories, and even with Fred in Haywood County, North Carolina, earlier on in the week as well, we saw some fatalities in that vicinity too with river rises. So just have to be cognizant. All storms are different, but just trying to give you an idea of what could end up happening based on some of the forecast here. Things have changed though considerably since the 70s and 80s. More people down here, I would think, and then you have to just watch out for that surge here as well, because that's a hidden danger sometimes. People don't think of it. Now, these are numbers like what we were seeing maybe toward our coast, our Big Bend coast, with Fred back last week here, or I guess earlier this week still, if you want to think of it like that. But you can see here, storm surge warning in play, storm surge warning scenario again. So many areas It's just kind of hard to put on a graphic, but we're talking about the south shore of Long Island there, north shore of Long Island, also over toward Flushing, New York, and then that extends from that point to Chatham in Massachusetts there, and then Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, and Block Island as well. You see 3 to 5 feet when we're really concerned, 2 to 4 feet pretty concerned. So that's kind of just giving you a guide there for where the worst of this will be. It seems like the worst will be there just to the east of the center, maybe with that wind kind of piling some of that water on up. So I gotta watch out. Beach erosion as well, dangerous rip currents, high surf, and then again that flood potential from the storm surge, and then that flood potential from the rain will also be something to watch. You can go to cloudweather.com/radar when we're not on here with any special coverage, because you'll be able to see some of that rain even already moving on in toward the northeast there. But some of these are brighter colored, indicative of several inches of rain, and isolated spots could get maybe 10 inches or so of rain. So we got to be really careful here, really careful. Other areas less, but still going to be continuing to watch this situation. Heavy rain from Henri may result in considerable flash urban and also some small stream flooding, along with a potential for minor and moderate river flooding. And then even just watching for that tornado risk, a tornado or two may be possible on Sunday there across southern New England. So just trying to give you an update there on all of that as what the Hurricane Center is talking about. So if you're watching from this area, as we start to wrap things up here, the preparedness considerations important, making sure that hurricane kit's up to date. That's what's really important here. As a basic disaster supply kit does include that water, non-perishable food, battery powered or hand crank radio, a no weather radio, flashlight, first aid kit. You can see that full list though at ready.gov/kit. And then inland flooding, a lot of concern sometimes in our local area toward North Florida, but I think inland flooding will be a threat up there as well. And then folks in this area toward the northeast need to chart it through devices as power outages are expected. In a tornado situation, of course, got to move to an interior room, and then after a storm moves through, I know we could see fatalities, injuries like this as well. I just got to stay away from power lines, as generator safety is also critical too. So I just got to really be careful here with this storm system, because it's an unusual situation overall. You can see the rain already coming in. We don't really need this rain here, but already a flash flood warning here remaining in effect to 11:45 for Kings and Queens counties there. Talking about Brooklyn in this area. Doppler Radar indicating thunderstorm producing heavy rain across the warned area. 1.5 to 3 inches have fallen. Additional rain amounts of 1 to 2 inches possible. So this could be an area, if we get a lot of rain now and then pile that up later on, could really be prone to significant flooding. So gotta remember that mantra: turn around, don't drown, because this is what could make things kind of unique here, and maybe more dangerous and more deadly than some other scenarios, is with the slower movement later on. That could really pile up those rainfall totals even more than what the forecast is showing. I know it's kind of hard to get an idea of what was going to happen out there in toward western Middle Tennessee earlier today with that catastrophic flooding there toward Humphreys County. Again, reports there 10 fatalities. From WSMV TV. I'll go ahead and pop that back on up here real quick. I know, again, not related, but just so tragic, so sad. Some of the stories coming out of this area here. We'll keep our eyes on that storyline, of course, from that national standpoint. Just continuing to monitor that situation very carefully. I know even seeing a destructive severe thunderstorm warning toward maybe parts of Wyoming here. Issue from the Salt Lake City office. Just kind of seeing national weather stories break here. Sometimes we have to kind of be cognizant of those, but as we look at our local backyard, you'll be able to kind of see what's going on with the Doppler radar here in just a moment. I'm going to pull that up just to kind of give you an idea here, because I know some of you watching might just want to know what's going on toward North Florida and South Georgia, and since we're on, even though it's a Saturday night with a special report, special update, I just want to see things look pretty clear. Maybe some storms off toward, it looks like the western Florida panhandle, but things pretty tame. We did have a marginal risk of severe weather toward southern Georgia today, but not seeing any severe warnings popping on up. Did have some lightning toward Orange Park report, it seemed, earlier on, looking in the chat session, but you can see here these temperatures in the 80s, still pretty warm for this time of night. You can kind of see here as we look back earlier, temperatures were in the 90s, so definitely seeing those warm temperatures around. You got to take those heat safety precautions here. Take them very carefully. Be very careful with the heat that is around. I'm just checking to see if there's anything else we need to talk about here real quick, because I don't want to be missing anything, obviously. in this scenario. So just bear with me for just a second. I don't want to miss anything here, because sometimes you can miss something here, even locally or whatever here, really, as we are going on. So I'm just making sure that we're not seeing anything different. I wanted to kind of pull that report up I saw earlier to see what might have happened toward that other part of our region there. I don't see that report coming up right now, but I did hear of some lightning issues earlier on, so that's something to kind of just always be aware of here. Just remember, when thunder roars, you want to go indoors. So again, watching things with that, watching things with our Hurricane Henri here. Definitely keeping our eyes on that here from that national perspective, the region that we're on at this moment. So let me go ahead and pop up the graphics real quick again. This is the information at 8 o'clock. Category 1 storm moving north-northeast at 18 miles an hour, but expected to slow down, which can weaken it some, and that'll be good news. But also that rainfall threat would be maybe serious, very serious even, and towards some urban areas based on some of those amounts really piling up. So they're talking here that dangerous storm surge is expected. Hurricane conditions, flood and rainfall in parts of the Northeast beginning late tonight or early Sunday, but really getting worse as we look ahead later on towards Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon. Probably not going to be wanting to go out to church there in a situation like this. Again, hurricane warning remaining in effect there for the south shore of Long Island from Fire Island Inlet to Montauk Point, the north shore of Long Island from Port Jefferson Harbor to Montauk Point, New Haven, Connecticut to west of Westport, Massachusetts, and then Block Island as well. And then a storm surge warning in play for some of these regions here too. Talking about the south shore of Long Island there, north shore, plus in New York to Chatham, Massachusetts, and even Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, and Block Island. So a lot going on. We're back tomorrow with more information as we have that special coverage as Henri makes landfall. But for now, thanks so much for tuning in and trusting me. I'm meteorologist Casey Cloud. Have a great night.